So I spent 30 years on the sidelines of the biggest stages in American and international sports, including the NBA and WNBA. Now, I've seen hard fouls. I've seen things get out of control, but I have not seen anything like what happened to Caitlin Clark this week. She was kneed, pinched, took a fist to the throat, and then an attempt to stomp on her. Okay, so that's not basketball. That's a targeted assault. And everyone watching knows it. Now, the WNBA finally suspended the player involved, and that's
the sound of a fist hitting the floor, the gasp of a crowd in disbelief. For 30 years, Michele Tafoya stood on the sidelines of American sports, witnessing the highest highs and the lowest lows. She has seen the game played at its most brutal, yet what she observed this week left her speechless. The target is not a ball. The target is a person. Her name is Caitlin Clark, and the league she is single-handedly reviving is allowing her to be hunted. This is not a story about a hard foul. This is a story about a league at war with its own golden goose. It's a story of hypocrisy, jealousy, and the terrifying speed at which an institution can turn on the very player who made it relevant. The incident itself was visceral, a knee to the thigh as Caitlin Clark lay defenseless on the court, a fist to the throat, and the gleam of a stomp descending upon her. This wasn't a basketball play. This was a message. For months, the WNBA has looked the other way. Michele Tafoya, a veteran of the sidelines, calls it exactly what it is, a targeted assault. The league that owes its international resurgence to Caitlin Clark has responded with a mere slap on the wrist for Alyssa Thomas, while a psychological war rages on. Now, the world is watching, asking a single, burning question: why is the WNBA trying to destroy Caitlin Clark? The immediate fallout from the assault on Caitlin Clark was the emergence of a disturbing pattern. This wasn't a singular moment of aggression. It was the boiling point of a season-long campaign. When Caitlin Clark is on the court, the physicality escalates into something unrecognizable from the sport's typical flow. Opponents, led by the intensity of figures like Alyssa Thomas, seem to play with a different set of rules when Clark is in possession. The league's failure to act, its complacency in the face of mounting evidence, is a strategic decision that speaks volumes about how the establishment views its new star. This is a brutal echo of the past, where a rising tide of talent is met not with a handshake, but with clenched fists.
Competence or intentional, both are embarrassing. The WNBA, they just keep driving into a wall at full speed with Caitlin Clark. They now have a commemorative poster of 30 years of the WNBA. Caitlin Clark's not on it. And it's not just like an ode to the veterans that started the league. Paige Beckers and Angel Reese are on it.
While the physical assault on Caitlin Clark is the symptom, the true sickness is the WNBA's institutional disease. The league's decision to leave Caitlin Clark off the 30th anniversary poster is an act of staggering disrespect. It is one thing to referee a game poorly. It is another to actively attempt to erase the player who filled arenas, forced the transition to private jets, and elevated the league from a financial afterthought to a global conversation. Even more insulting to Caitlin Clark is the hypocrisy of the selection. They placed Angel Reese and Paige Beckers on the poster, rookies and rising stars, just like Caitlin Clark. The message to Caitlin Clark is clear. You are the weapon, but you will never be the face. You are the revenue stream, but you are not welcome in the Hall of Fame. The move reeks of pettiness and resentment. It signals to the old guard that no matter how much money Caitlin Clark brings in, the league's legacy is something she is not allowed to touch. It shows the WNBA is more concerned with protecting the egos of the players who came before than with celebrating the player who is funding their future. The damage to the league's brand is catastrophic, proving that the front office is just as hostile to Caitlin Clark as the players on the court. To understand the chaos surrounding Caitlin Clark, you must look into the psychology of the players and the league's leadership. It is a classic tale of resentment. For years, the league existed in a bubble, fighting for relevance, fighting for pay, fighting for recognition. Players battled valiantly, but the mainstream ignored them. Then Caitlin Clark arrived. Her talent, her charisma, and her marketability did what decades of collective work couldn't. She dragged the WNBA into the international spotlight. Logic would dictate gratitude. Instead, she has been met with disdain.
Folks can't stop talking about Caitlin Clark. You don't know to ride that wave? You don't know to be mindful and cognizant of that reality and go forward from there? You don't know that? Don't you want to make money? What you don't do is have such a disdain and a disregard for her that her coach is complaining about intentional harm being aimed in her direction because of the resentment that she fuels.
This resentment towards Caitlin Clark is palpable. It's not just about being beaten, it's about being eclipsed. Stephen A. Smith cuts to the core of the issue, calling out the WNBA's unwillingness to ride the wave. The league has a disdain and a disregard for Caitlin Clark, and her own coach is being forced to comment on the intentional harm being aimed in her direction. This is no longer a basketball debate. It is a psychological battle. The stars of the WNBA, led by figures who feel slighted by Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise, seem to want to beat her out of the sport rather than beat her on the scoreboard. The analogy is clear. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird didn't try to injure Michael Jordan to stop his ascent. They rose to the challenge. They knew that beating the best made them legends. The current WNBA mentality towards Caitlin Clark is antithetical to the spirit of competition. It suggests that the players and the league are so insecure about the legacy they built that they cannot accept a new queen taking the throne. The target on Caitlin Clark's back is not a mark of her weakness. It is a mark of their fear. The consequences of this hostility toward Caitlin Clark are not just physical, they are financial and existential. The WNBA is cutting off the branch it is sitting on. The league has finally started flying private. Arenas are selling out. The visibility is at an all-time high, all because of one player. Yet, the leadership and the veteran players seem determined to sabotage this momentum. By allowing a hostile environment to persist for Caitlin Clark, the WNBA is playing a dangerous game of chicken with its own profitability. They are implying that they are willing to sacrifice the league's future to prove that they don't need Caitlin Clark.
You ride that wave. You want to beat Caitlin Clark? Beat her playing basketball. Don't beat her with roughhouse tactics. Compromising her ability to play, because if she ain't playing, it's going to affect ratings. And if it's affecting ratings, it's going to affect revenue. And if it's going to affect revenue, then you're not going to build the sport the way you hope to build the sport. That's the reality. Let's all grow up and accept it for what it is.
The high-stakes climax of this story is the economic reality that is about to crash down on the WNBA. Stephen A. Smith perfectly articulates this harsh truth. If Caitlin Clark isn't playing, the ratings drop. If the ratings drop, the revenue dries up. The players wanted a seat at the table and a bigger piece of the pie, but the pie is now being baked by Caitlin Clark. By allowing Alyssa Thomas and others to rough up Caitlin Clark with impunity, the league is risking its financial viability. It's the ultimate paradox, trying to stop the player who is the only reason people are watching. The league is testing the limits of public scrutiny, believing that they can control the narrative. But the narrative is slipping through their fingers. The media, from Fox News analysts to diehard sports fans, are united in their condemnation. The silence from the WNBA front office is deafening, and their actions speak louder than any press release. They are effectively telling the world that the physical abuse Caitlin Clark is suffering is acceptable collateral damage. The prediction is grim. If the WNBA does not intervene, Caitlin Clark will not stay in Indiana. She will leave. And when she leaves, the league will return to the shadows, having lost the player who could have built an empire.